Hi there, I'm Questy, and I'm just about to poke around at Farthest Frontier. Uh, and I have fired the game up and I've taken a quick look at it. I've watched a couple videos of this, and there's a couple reasons that this game has really fired onto my radar. Number one, this game is the new game from Crate Entertainment, the makers of pretty much my favorite ARPG of all time, Grim Dawn. Um, and it's my favorite for two reasons. One, I love the setting, I love the lore, I love the gameplay. And number two, I love the support that the company gave the game. They worked on it for years. It's been out for a long time. It's a very mature project, and just recently in the last couple of months, they issued another major balancing and content patch for the game. The support has been outstanding. And so looking at this game now, it is in early access on Steam. It's just come out a couple days ago. And I know going forward that we are going to see some things. I already know there's going to be some stuff missing from the UI that I'm not, that I wish was there. And there's probably going to be bugs. I know load times are something people are complaining about. I saw a couple negative reviews on Steam where they were talking about UI issues and bugs. I think, maybe you shouldn't buy early access stuff if you do not understand that the game is not done. We can see this is version 0.7.3. This is not a 1.0 game, and I think we should understand that. And so what I'm planning to do here is basically blindly blunder into this game, because the second reason why I'm so excited about it is it carries a lot of inspiration from the game Banished. And if you haven't played that game, I remember years ago when that first started getting teased, I fell in love with the idea of it. Just sort of a peaceful but difficult survival town builder. Well, this game, Farthest Frontier, really they've picked that up. They've run with it. They've combined some aspects of much more complex city builders to it. So instead of me just talking, let's get going. Let's have a look at the game. Let me see here. So I don't have a continue. Obviously, I don't have a game saved. So let's drop a new settlement. Now, a little bit of this I saw in their live stream. One of the things that I really like right off the bat is we've got a pacifist mode here. So if you are one of the many people who fell in love with the vibe of Banished, that vibe is available here, right? We can disable the raiders. We can take them out of the mix. Make it so that really, your villagers might die starving or shitting themselves to death from dysentery on an outhouse somewhere, but they won't get an axe through their skull. So, it's got that slightly more relaxing vibe of just death by dysentery instead of death by violence. But there's a lot more options in this, obviously, right? We can look here at advanced settings, where we can adjust maladies, raiders, wildlife. Now, wildlife in this is a little bit different too. Wildlife will attack your villagers. So if there's predators out there and they catch a hunter on their own, like you might get attacked by wolves, you might get attacked by a bear, things like that. It's a more dangerous world. But like the old Banished game, it can be played in pacifist mode. And this basically means that all of those attacks, that violence part of it, is going to be out of it. Now, I have no idea how that affects the game, but I think what we'll do is we'll start in the Trailblazer mode, which is really what they seem to be indicating as a default, and we're just going to go for that. We'll leave the map size the same, we'll leave the name the same, we won't fuck with anything, we'll just get going and we'll see what's in the game. I think, let me let this run.
Life can be harsh everywhere, but in the old world, there was no hope of it ever improving. When our crops failed, the ruling class would still collect the same share, leaving our children to starve. And if we had any coin to our name, the taxman would appear, demanding it for the crown. The nobles hid behind the safety of their walls and did nothing when raiders pillaged the outskirts of the city. And so, some of us decided that it was time to leave, that we'd rather take our chances in the wilderness, seeking the promise of a new land, than starve to death in our homeland. The journey wasn't easy. We lost many along the way. But this wild, unsettled land offers us the hope of a new start as the masters of our own destiny.
Great, you complete me. But yeah, I'm just tremendously interested. We see some of the incredible load times here. I mean, this is, M.2 load times that we're looking at. So it definitely is maybe not as optimized as it could be, but I would say for an initial release, and just the game just looks amazing. And once again, that thing that the world building and the presentation is. All right, so here we are. Essentially, the way that this starts, we have essentially nothing on the map right now. The way that this starts is we're going to drop ourselves a town center, right? So, think of it like Warcraft. We're putting down our town hall. So essentially, we'll confirm that. And you can see here, like, this is maybe too steep a hill. We can build right on the crest. That might not be a terrible idea, although we can see there's a lot of non-buildable terrain around here. So while we might think of this as, it'd be cool, like a defensible hilltop, it's a bit small, and we would have a bit of distance before we could start putting down other stuff. Now, you'll notice as well, spacebar is paused. Now, normally in something like Banished, I would immediately pause the game right when I started. And so I'm not too sure, like, it doesn't work right now. And I think that's because it's waiting for me to take action on this initial placement. So we're going to do that, and we're going to just have to assume that my people aren't starving to death before I put this down. Like, I almost feel like that's what starts the game. All right, now we can zoom. This is as far as we can zoom out. But we can zoom right in, so we can come over here and, like, we can look at these little, I mean, honestly, pretty rustic looking. But that's very, like, Eastern European to me, right? Like, that's quite the look. All right, but anyway, let's zoom out. And so basically, looking at the map here, we can kind of mouse around, and we can see some of these things that we have, right? We have hawthorn bushes, we have greens, so it's obviously going to be food. We have sand pit. This is a much more complicated resource management game than Banished was, for example. There's a lot more products, there's a lot more production chains. So as we scroll around here, we can see that there's a lot of stuff on the menu. Over here, we've got a clay deposit. You can obviously think ahead to that being ceramics, bricks, that type of stuff. We've got quite a bit of arid ground here as well, right? So I'm thinking that we might not have a lot of fertility here. We got a lot of clay. Over here, we're seeing some greens. So this type of stuff, it makes me think we probably have a lot of gathering. Over here, boar sighted. Now you can see that it has a green circle around it. That means that the boar isn't going to immediately come and fuck us up. If we see red wildlife markers, that means that basically, like, we might have a wolf lair there or something, and that is a danger to our people, right? And early on, that might be a bit of an issue. They're not very well equipped. Now, this map, so the one other time that I checked it out, we had gold deposits, we had coal deposits, we had a lakefront with some fishing and stuff like that. So I'm just going to kind of float around the map here, around the exposed area of the map, and sort of see what we have. And ultimately what I'm thinking is we don't have much. Like, I'm not seeing those mineral deposits. I'm seeing some clay. This is a very sort of, okay, so here we got some water. This is a very kind of flat, relatively arid region that it looks like we're in. But I would prefer, in general, if we know one rule of human settlement, try to get it as close to water as you can. So let's take a quick look around. We've got some herbs here. We've got some greens. We've got hawthorn. Down here at the beach, we've got some willow bushes. We've got some clay. Now, obviously, looking at this map, I'm not seeing much in the way of minerals really at all. That might be something that comes into play later on. We might find that that's a problem. But I think for right now, let's try to cozy up by the water. Let's pick somewhere that's greener on the base assumption that that means we're going to be in a scenario where, you know, we have a little bit more fertility for farming. And then I guess the only other thing that we can really look at is we've got some deer sighted in this area. And so my hope would be that that gives us some early hunting opportunities so that before we have infrastructure built up, we're still going to have food sources that are pretty effective at getting protein to our inhabitants. So let's set back a little bit from the waterfront and let's build ourselves a town center sort of right over here. And again, I'm not going to be trying to, you know, ace this because I don't have a fucking clue what I'm doing. So let's go yes. Let's drop that down. It's going to move my villagers over here, I think. I'm saying like I know, but I actually don't know shit. Okay, so now as you can see, we've paused the game. And basically, right here, we've got construction that's about to happen. Now, the first thing you're going to notice is like, my villagers are unhappy. Why? Because they're just standing in a fucking field. They got nothing, right? They're dressed like these fucking folk heroes of the Slavic culture. And as far as I can tell, there might be like one woman with them. But we don't know that for sure. Who's this? Okay, now there's a couple. There's a couple. This 49-year-old lady, she's probably, you know, there's Katie. So we got a bunch of dudes. Oh, we got a couple ladies. Okay, so I maybe that's not why they're incredibly unhappy. All right, so, but one of the first things that we're going to have to do, and again, okay, so this is something that we should look at. You know, if you're coming through from Banished, obviously there's a lot more going on with the villagers, right? We've got a lot of morale. We've got their heat, we've got their proteins, we've got their health. Now, one of the things going forward is we're going to start, let me see if I can find it. Yeah, here we go. This is the professions, and this is going to be pretty familiar to anyone from the Banished days. But I think this is where we get into a little bit more of, you know, your rim world type of interactions, because I had a scenario like just in the few minutes that I had started up a game before, a wolf came and, you know, savaged one of my little dudes. Now, dude survived, but was bleeding out on the ground, and it said basically get him to a healer. Well, I didn't have one. This is a trained profession, and we just didn't have anyone who could do it. That little fucker was dead. So the game is not going to ignore those events in the way that a simpler game like Banished would, right? This game actually has those sort of rim world interactions where somebody gets hurt, somebody else needs to know how to fix it. And that has to be a designated person in your village that has the skills. They are educated, they have the skills, and they can do it. So prepare for a lot more interaction with your people than you would have in a game like Banished. And I think that's going to only be a positive thing going forward. All right, but the first thing we need to do, we've told these guys, so this again is the same. We've got ourselves a little bit of a storage area here. So it's, excuse me, it's at half capacity. So we can, you know, move materials to it and whatnot. But what we need to do first is we actually need to generate some materials, because if we're going to build this building, we need the basics, which is some trees and whatnot. So we're going to hit H. Now it basically gives us a harvest menu. So what we can do is we can toggle things on and off, right? So we can say like, hey, you know, leave the bushes and berries alone, but I want stones and trees because we're trying to build. We're not going to do that, because if they harvest those bushes and berries, we might end up with a little bit of food as well. So what we'll do is we'll go here and we'll just get ourselves some trees, and we'll get ourselves some, you know, hopefully some stone. Let's see, like maybe, you know, we'll go over here to get some stone just in case we need it. We have a little bit more up there. And then we're going to go ahead and increase the speed that we run at. We'll just let them go and we'll see what they do. So basically, you can see here we have a housing shortage. Our firewood is low. Of course it is. We haven't generated anything. So let's let these little bastards work for a second and get some materials put together for it. Okay, so within seconds, we have problems. As you can see here, 2 villagers are being attacked by predators. Now, these are our previous warnings of housing and firewood. And that's basically, you know, they've just sort of migrated to the top here, but they're still accessible. But we can now center on this particular scenario over here. You can see we've got some lowering health. So if we zoom in, we find out that basically these guys have been attacked. Now I don't see. I'm gonna slow down. I don't know what the key command is for that, but I'm gonna slow down time. I'm gonna look. Okay, so obviously I had time accelerated there, and just in that short period of time, they obviously defeated the threat, but were injured. But you can see here the ailments are none on him, and ailments none. Now they are wounded, but they are not wounded in a way that they're going to continue to deteriorate. So unlike that poor bastard that got ripped up last time, they're still in okay shape. Now what we've got here is a carcass of a hunted animal. So basically this here would be the remains of the predator. Now let's poke around at this and sort of see if there's anything we can do in terms of picking up that carcass, or whether that's automated. Now, I'm actually thinking that it's probably automated for them to do something with that, just because I don't have any click-on options there. And my understanding of, you can see here how we've started to develop a bit of a wood pile at the construction site. This is automated. So basically they'll move to a location, they'll drop a tree. Let's just let this run a little bit. We're going to bump it up to 2x. So you can see here, they'll down a tree, they'll create the resources, and then that resource will be moved point to point by basically porters. You can see them carrying in resources. We've got some logs on the ground here. Somebody's going to head over and pick it up at some point. See this little guy right here? He's grabbed them. So it's not showing that they're carried. But that might be because he was so close here. He delivered them as soon as he hit this line. But I know from earlier commentary from the developer that they are going to be real-time moving those supplies, which is nice because that gives you the opportunity to sort of build logistics, trains, and stuff like that, which is a huge part of the fun of this. All right, so here we go. We've got ourselves a town officially now. So now we can start looking at some of the buildings and stuff that are available for me to build. Obviously, we're going to need housing. So we're going to investigate that, and we're going to look at stockyards as well. So let's see, building menu is going to be B. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so storage right off the bat. We're going to want a stockyard. We also have wagons too, which you can put out by fields and stuff like that. I don't know. We'll figure that out later. But I think the first thing we probably want is to put a stockyard pretty close into the village here. Now, I don't know whether we have... let me see here. Oops. All right. I'm gonna quickly take a little rummage. Let me see. Build placement, cancel, move camera, rotate, zoom camera. Okay, those are general controls. Give me just a moment to rummage around. Okay, as expected, there are ways to rotate the buildings. So you can see basically I can just hit tab to toggle through the orientations. Now I think what we want to do is basically give ourselves room for pathways to run between here. And let's just do a quick experiment here and see. Roads, walls, and roads. Here we go. Okay. Dirt road. Okay, so 1 square wide. So that's about the division that we're going to need there. So let's go back to our build menu. Let's go to storage, and let's set this up. Okay, so we're gonna kind of leave it this way, oriented so that the gate's kind of to the north of our little town center. So we're gonna drop that building there and get that together. Now, the other thing we're gonna need is housing. So let's take a look at that as well. And see what we have on tap. Okay, so tier 2, this is locked, obviously. We're going to need a couple things before we can build it. So right now, we're basically limited to these little shelters. Desirability not looking amazing, but we'll get going. Ooh, interesting. So we had a little status change there. This is probably a desirability map. So you can see here we've got that location desirability. We're basically not in the green zone anywhere. But I think what we'll do, instead of putting it next to the stockyard, we might say that that's going to be a little bit more of our early industrial area. And so we'll start building off of the side here. We'll just give ourselves separation for roads to go around the center of town there. We'll build ourselves a couple houses. Now, I guess the important thing is, how many people can we fit inside these houses? That's a bit of a question, right? So I think what we're seeing here as well, when we close in like this and we try to tuck them in right next to each other, we see that yellow zone. I don't know whether that is going to affect anything to do with desirability or anything like that. I'm not sure if that's what it's trying to indicate to us. But in the meantime, I'm just gonna tuck them up close like this. We'll huddle together. We'll huddle together for warmth in this strange new world that we've come to. Okay, so this is in alignment here. So I'll just maybe pop that down. Should I go 1? Nah, let's go 2. Let's go a little bit of a wider avenue there. So now I'm putting down 4 houses, and the thing is, I don't know exactly how many people each house can hold. We've got 12 people we need to house. That might mean, say, 6 houses. I don't know for sure. So we'll get a few of them going, and we'll see what's going to happen with that. So once again, we're still harvesting some trees here. These ones here are still highlighted to be harvested. So I'm going to let the game run a little bit. I'm going to get those resources in, and we'll see where we get. As you can see, I've got some houses up. Well, I've got a single house up now, and you can see the rest of these are being supplied with logs as we continue to sort of clear these areas here and carry the logs in. But you can see here as well, we have this building has no firewood. Now we know that, right? Because we have no firewood cut. So let's take another look at our build menu and see what we can figure out. Now resources, we have a basic well. All right, that's going to improve desirability. So this is probably something that we'll want to locate somewhere around the nearby area. And we also have a firewood splitter. So this is going to be vital. As we move through the season, I suspect that we're probably going to see winter come in at some point. You can see here we have this indicator of season, which is actually moving despite the fact that I have it paused. So, you know, party foul right there. We're just in the spring right now, but by the time we get here, we don't want to be short on firewood and we don't want to be short on shelter. That's when people are going to start dying, if I know anything about these survival town builders. So let's go ahead and use our little plan to kind of cordon off our industrial area here. So look at this here. So this is a production building, right? And I'm just noticing I can fuck up the desirability of that house by putting this closer to it. So I'm going to back it off away from that house. Basically just put it right out. You know what? Let's just move it away. Let's just move it away. All right. So I'm going to hit tab, just kind of reorient this building here, and kind of bring it out in alignment with the stockyard that we have there. Okay. So that would be clipping into it, and let's leave a little roadway there. Actually having a little trouble. There we go. Yeah, the deer was in the way. Now you can, of course, rotate the camera, so that's not really a big issue. Okay, so there we go. You know, we've got this one little, let me just escape out of that. We've got the, you know, these shelters are not great. I don't know. I suppose if you like that rustic side of things, you know, wonderful. But what I will say though is, once again, and you know, very much in keeping with Grim Dawn, these are not, I wouldn't say the most cutting edge graphics. You know, no one's gonna accuse this of being the most beautiful model in the world in terms of polys. But what it's very, very well done in terms of art direction, right? This exactly portrays what we're looking at here. We're looking at a quick, hopefully temporary shelter that these people are going to throw up over their heads and just to get in out of the weather, right? So I love that. You know, the art design in Grim Dawn and in this game, it just feels very on point to me. Good old crate. All right, so yeah, so let's let people run. We're just hitting speed 3x right now, which feels pretty good. That is our max speed. And I think events might get on top of you a bit, given how fast that predator attack happened. So I'm just gonna maybe cut this back to speed 2, and I won't. Okay, we've got another house up there, and we are coming along with this too. We can see that there's 2 out of the possible 4 workers assigned to it, and then this would allow us to increase or decrease the assigned workers. I don't know whether we can just sort of flag something as a higher priority. I would assume that we can. Oh yeah, look at the UI. We could prioritize this. And I'm actually tempted to do that. I'm tempted to prioritize the construction of this because it's going to be pretty important for us to get this firewood going so that these buildings here can lose their little red flag. And of course, their desirability is probably going to go up once they're actually heated, right? So let's get that together. One of the other things is when we opted to harvest, we did opt to harvest berries and stuff as well. Now, one of the other things, if you're rolling over from Banished, food does have spoilage in this game. It's not going to be as easy to manage. So you can see here, we have 7 months of food, which is a lot, but we are looking at losing 2 months of that food over the next year due to spoilage. So that's going to be an interesting mechanic. And I know that we can mitigate that in the future by building things like root cellars and, grain storage and stuff like that. So we can improve that over time. But at this point, it's basically a bunch of meat sitting on a cart covered in flies, right? It's like eat it while you got it kind of thing, right? So we're okay for now, but we are definitely going to want to explore those food gathering systems. But obviously we're in a reasonably good spot because we do have a lot of deer wandering around. Okay, so here we go. We now actually have a firewood splitter. So occupancy over here is showing 1 of 2. So this means that it's okay. So it's Fargus. Fargus is our firewood splitter. He's wandering and unable to work. Why are you unable to work? Is it, maybe we'll just give this a moment. There we go. Okay, he's stocking it. Good stuff. So he's bringing in logs and stuff like that. We've got a storage area right next to him where I'm hoping that firewood can be stored. And he's going to start producing. That's going to start solving problems. Okay, now here we go. Building does not have access to clean water. Build a well nearby. We're going to do that. It should be noted that water sources in this game can give your people pathogens, right? Like if you just assume that your villagers are going to be able to crawl up to a puddle and start lapping it up, then you're going to have a bad time. Mud butt incoming. So basically we're going to have to go ahead and get ourselves a well in here. Now, one of the things that we did notice when we accessed the building menu, we looked at the well, which was, yeah, right here. This is showing us something, right? So the water bonus as we get near the lake is better, and that basically just shows the water table in the land, right? As we get out here in the dry land area, that water bonus gets worse. Basically, we're at a little bit of a higher elevation. The water table is lower. It's going to be tougher to build a well. Down here, that well is just going to be producing. And so what I think I'm going to do, without really knowing the interaction of the well and things like fire suppression, for example, is I'm just going to throw it right down here. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, why don't they just fucking go to the lake, you lazy shits? Well, it's not clean water, right? So one of the advantages of a well is that the water is being filtered through the ground table, and that this gives them a cleaner source of water, right? They don't have to go down to the lake where Jed just took a shit just down the beach and, a deer carcass is rotting, 100 meters down the other way. They can actually get in the well and get some clean water. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do this, and we're actually going to prioritize this again because getting clean water is going to help us again raise the desirability of these buildings. All right, so let's let them have a go at this. We're going to actually bump up to 3x speed. Now we are running into late spring. We want people under roofs, stocked with firewood, food, water. That's our goal for this season. We've got to get that taken care of. Otherwise, we're going to have a bad time. Now these houses here, we've now found out that we can cram 4 of these little fuckers in there. So the houses that we have, I'll deal with that in a second, are going to house up to 16 people. They're probably not going to be comfortable. They're going to hate me, but they can get in there, right? I hope none of them snore too loud or fart too much in their sleep, but that's where we're at. Okay, so here's our mechanic for people joining the settlement. People await word to join your settlement. So this is the general idea of like, it's instead of nomads showing up at our town hall, these are people who are basically like, hey, has everybody died out there? Or can we come over there and join up? Now, essentially, what they want is 6 houses. They want to know they got a place to live, and they want to know that they're not going to starve. We've got the food covered. We've got 6 months of food, but you can see that's going down. So we're going to have to work on that with a gatherer's hut or something like that. But we don't have the houses yet. Now, in a way, that's not a bad thing because we've got 12 people here that we've got to get roofed and get fed and get taken care of. Oh, big advantage there. You just saw that disappear. It looks like some firewood is starting to get into these houses. To be fair, I'm not actually seeing that in their storage. So who knows? It could just be that now they have access to firewood. We'll see. Okay, but once we get that well up, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at a source of food because we have food in storage, but it's running down fast and I would love to start producing more. We're going to let this run, but we are going to take a look at our building menu and look at food production. So we have a couple of options here. We've got a smokehouse. What that's going to do is let us smoke meat, which means when we make a kill hunting or we do some fishing, we can actually preserve it a bit. So it's going to help us fight that spoilage issue. We can do crop fields. We can do fishing shacks. We have forager shacks. This is your gatherer's hut. And we have a hunter cabin. Now, one of the things that we might get a lot of bang for the buck from is a hunter cabin because we know that we have this area here where we have deer, more deer there. So in other words, if we put a hunter shack up here, we might get a lot of activity from that. Now, the other option, of course, is we go fishing. Now, we don't actually see an icon that tells us that is going to work. So let's run a little experiment and sort of see, like if we just put this on the beach here, we've got 10 fishing areas. Now, it's kind of hating on what I'm trying to do here, but it won't let me put it there. It says it's obstructed by water, invalid placement. There we go. Okay, that's the range. So it actually tells us here, 379 fish, fishing productivity 100%. So this is another really strong thing for us to look at because fishing, I think, will just keep on going, right? So fishing and hunting are probably going to be really big. I think if we go back to the build menu and we look at forager shacks, in Banished, this was one of the weapons of choice. Develop land 0%, blah, blah, blah. Foraging sources spotted. Okay, so here it's kind of showing us in this general area how much stuff we might be able to pick up. So again, this looks pretty good. But I think if we put a fishing shack or a hunting shack in, it means we can get something really close to town that's maybe gonna give us that immediate food, right? Okay, so we have a well. And I did say as soon as we had this, we have access to water, we have access to firewood. Food is the next thing we need to do. We've got 5 months of food. 2 months of that is in danger of spoilage. And we are approaching fall. And notice this seems to keep moving even if I'm paused. I don't love that. I would love this to pause as well. Because while you're paused, you're not improving your town. You know, maybe bring the menu up. But I think the impulse is often that you just want to tap the space bar and walk away to get a drink or something, and your villagers are like hold person over there just watching the leaves turn and them get closer to a horrible freezing death. while you're off, in the bathroom or something like that. So maybe making that pause menu universal, that might be a good thing. All right. In the background, I've decided we're going to go fishing. Now you can see here, we've got a fish icon there once we're in this resource mode, which I, activated by pulling out a resource building. And you can see if we go over there, 200% fishing activity over here, 110, 100, that's great. But obviously this 190, give me that 200. There we go. So we're going to slap that down. It's in a pretty good spot. It's far away from the houses, so we know it's not going to have a negative impact there. We're going to go here and we're going to prioritize this again. We've got people housed. We have a little bit of additional capacity. We do not yet have the houses available to bring in more residents, but I think I just want to get stable before we do that. So let's go ahead and have people build this fishing shack for me. All right, so we're working on that fishing shack. We do not have any additional housing, but what you will see here is we just got 2 villagers immigrating, which is interesting because that seems like a little bit of a different mechanic, right? I didn't have a choice on that. That just happened. So we bumped up to 14 population. So no big deal right now. We are about to, we're about to start bumping up that food. But it looks like this is a different mechanic. So we're probably going to have events where we can acquire additional people. And then we're going to have random people just wandering in, tattered clothes, 1,000-yard stares, just coming in to join our, no fishing range, really, because I'm seeing a shoal of fish. Okay, I think that was basically just because essentially there was nobody working it. Hey, look, that's pretty cool. So this is basically showing us the travel time, right? So we got Ela here. She looks kind of happy in a rundown sort of way. Isn't that nice? All right, so we've got Ela here. She is working this place, and it's showing us that basically excessive time spent traveling from place to place can cause inefficiencies in work and failure to get needed supplies in time. This can be reduced by storing raw materials closer to manufacturing and keeping basic needs like food and water close to homes. All right. So in other words, this is telling us like, hey, did you place this too far away? Like how much of their time is being wasted traveling to and from? So this might be dynamic. But right now it looks like basically, yeah, so it's a little bit dynamic. And so as she stalks this area, I think that, basically that might be reduced over time. Potentially we could improve that by moving a small storage shack or something right next to it. Again, very similar to Banished, but I like that it's sort of showing me that. It's showing me in real time what my efficiencies are and whatnot. That's going to come in pretty handy. Okay. So here we are. We've got a couple extra people in town. We've got, our housing is certainly, there's no extra housing on the go here. It's pretty cramped, which of course is my fault, right? Because I really wanted to focus before we get into fall here on getting food up and stuff. Now, the other thing that I'd love to do now that we have this food production facility, that's going to give us some fresh fish. But I think the other thing that I might want to do is actually introduce a smokehouse to the town, because that's gonna let us it's gonna let us preserve that a little bit, and it's gonna also serve that same function when we're hunting and other things like that. So let's slap that together right now. And I think if we maybe go on this side here, this is maybe a good spot for it. Just because we're quite close to the storage areas here and stuff like that. I don't really know. All this stuff is probably something that I'm gonna have to, figure out. I'm gonna have to optimize. We'll just put it right here right now. And let them go ahead and start building that. And then we'll probably expand out a little bit more residential over here. And we might space the houses a little bit more appropriately. Just because we did kind of cramp them up, and I think I didn't quite understand what that white grid around it is, which is basically the area at which it starts to be affected by its neighbors. So you can see here, location desirability is being reduced as we move it too close to the other houses. So if we give it just a little bit more room, you know, it's going to be something like, we want obviously a pretty compact design, but we also don't want to, you know, we don't want to piss them off by like stuffing them right in the neighbor's yard. So I think we'll maybe what we'll do is we'll back it off a little bit here. We'll put like a couple more houses up here. Yeah, location desirability 2%. A little bit, and that's because we're moving it close to these production facilities and stuff like that. So we'll just kind of tuck it in over here. And we'll put another little block of housing there. Okay, so we're seeing that food stocks are low. That's unfortunate because we were hoping that we could actually produce a little bit here. So she's dropping off fish. We're gonna pretty much immediately just build something else. We're just gonna, you know, do the panic option, get some stuff out here. And I think probably the first thing we want to do is just kind of forage, because we have a lot of forage out here. So let's just plant a forager shack right in this area here to try to encompass a lot of those materials. Now, obviously, there's going to be a balance between how far out here we put it and travel times and stuff like that. But for now, I think we just want to get that going, and we're going to prioritize that. And hopefully we can get that up. Now, here's something else that's kind of interesting. I think what we're looking at here is me making the wrong choice. You see how all this stuff has gone gray? That's probably because it's going out of season. So I'm actually going to go ahead and entirely remove that. And I'm going to replace it with a hunter's cabin. Because obviously deer don't go out of season. Well, deer do go out of season, but not according to the game here. So let's get a hunter's cabin up. This should be a pretty good location for that. We're pretty close to town, which means we're going to have a short transit time for people going out here. But okay, so there looks like there's a bunch of indicators for you know, predators and stuff like that. But this should be a good location. It really should. So we're going to go ahead and bump that up. Now you'll notice, like, I haven't really fucked around with the professions a lot. Which, you know, we can do. Like, we can go, like, we have one fisherman, but we can only fit one where they are. I think it would be more like builders and stuff like that, where we might be able to fuss around, but I'm not actually seeing that. So it could be that builders are just going to kind of auto assign out of our, never mind, I'm an idiot. Yeah. Okay. So we could increase the number of builders if we wanted to. Okay, so we are running out of food. So we're on a crash course to just dying off here. So we'll see. Obviously here, our travel time is a lot of time. So this is not going to necessarily be a very productive spot. Let's just hope for the best. Let's see what happens. We've got the smokehouse working. We've got a couple of food production facilities. Food is not looking good. We got 1 month of food, so we're not starving, but we're not looking great. What I might do is actually, well, we're already pretty close with the houses here, so my hope is that that's not going to be too bad. Let's just give it a minute. If all these little fuckers starve to death, we'll call that one poking around, and then we'll try to do a little bit better in the future here. All right, I'm going to let this run a little bit and see if we die or survive. Guys, exciting development. We now have 2 months of food, and our spoilage is down to 0. That doesn't mean that nothing is spoiling. It just means that we've kind of started to rein that problem in. Okay, you see, we just went up to 4 months of available food, 5 months. Now we're starting to see those spoilage numbers come up because we have a lot more in inventory. But the smokehouse is going to be helping us with that. This is creating more durable food for us. Now you can see one of the things here where we have these slightly more little autosave going off there, which is good because I'd forgotten to save. You can see here these travel times are getting pretty high. This one's pretty good. These ones are a little bit higher. And that's okay. So travel time has come down. Now what I think is happening here is that when we initially put this up and we had that rough travel time, we probably had somebody from here working that place, right? So now that potentially those professions have shifted around a little bit, Yeah, okay, so this guy's out there butchering. This guy's a hunter, so he's on pretty short, and she's stocking the smokehouse. So basically, this is your travel time that's showing up as about 50%, whereas over here, closer to home, 38%. Now, I would estimate that down here, we're probably going to find a bunch of unemployed people. Okay, well, whatever. Ela, where does she live? Probably over here. No? Here? No? Okay. Theory's being shot to shit. She lives at the maximum possible range, so forget everything I said. But needless to say, what these people need to work this place is relatively close. That said, the well, pretty far away, so yeah. All right, but look at this. We're approaching spring. The snows are gone. We got 5 months of food. My village isn't going to die in the first winter. That right there is the Banished seal of approval. Okay, this video is already getting pretty long. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pause here, and I'm just going to run for a little while. I'm going to play the game for a little bit, and then we'll come back and we'll see where I'm at. All right, well, I've been just going around doing a couple of little tasks here, and I just wanted to drop back in. Look at this, eh? We got 2 villagers have been born, so people are actually finding enough time in these crowded little shacks to start making babies. We had a couple more people join, you know, a couple more settlers just wander in. You can see we're at 27 of 28 people that we have shelter for. The food situation is not terrible. We're doing okay. It's getting a little diversified maybe because we have a gather shack up here. And as you can see, with this location here, I wanted to provide some nearby housing. And I wanted to provide some nearby water, so I've made like a little node here. Now, I'm not seeing a lot of positive effects from that quite yet because everybody who lives in this house is doing something very far away, right? This person here being a lazy fucker. Marna here is chopping trees, which means that she's probably working way over here where we're doing some clear cutting. And then Luthark is over here. He's cutting planks. Now, this is a saw pit, so that's giving us planks. We've got our smokehouse here. We've got ourselves a root cellar, right? So this is basically somewhere where we are able to store food, and that reduces its spoilage rate. So we're at 9 months, and we got 1 month of food that we are due to lose in the next year. So this is good. We're smoking our meat. We're storing our food underground. We're keeping it at a regular temperature. And down here, this basic big empty ass building is a brand new storehouse that we've built. So this is a place where produced materials and stuff are going to end up. Hopefully something that, you know, will be pretty universal. Now, one of the things that we are looking at is we're getting to the stage where we want to start upgrading some of these places. But as you can see, there's some requirements, right? Basically, our town center is going to need to be upgraded before we can get any better housing. So everybody's living in these little shitty shacks. Location desirability is too low, right? We need to get that up a little bit. And apparently we need a herb. Okay, whatever. So they've got food, they've got water. They need to be a little more desirable. We need a better town center, and we need some herbs. All right, now the town center here, once again, we can't upgrade it. We don't have a market. We don't have enough population, but we're close. We don't have enough shelters, but we're close. We don't have enough planks, but we're producing them. So I think basically what we need to do is just kind of continue down the path, doing what we're doing, getting a couple more buildings down. We want to get a market down. That's going to make us more marketable for people to come into town. So just your basic, like super basic upgrade path to bring more people in and to start seeing this turn from a bunch of shanties into a little bit of a town, a little bit of a village. So I'm just going to continue working on it, continue building structures, and see where we get in the next little while. Quick update. You know, we're doing some stuff. We're building a farm. We're doing some things. And, something not quite right about this. And what I'm discovering is I don't know how to fight fire. So I've got all my villagers selected here, and when I clicked on the building, they just kind of stood there and watched it burn. Sinister. Not the reaction I was hoping for. So digging around here, let's see if we can actually find out how to make these little bastards save my building. Now I wonder if I kind of fucked it by trying to manually do that, or I wonder if they would have just gone about their business if I wouldn't have done that. So one of the things I've noticed is when I toggle a villager and I move them to a specific spot, they just kind of stand there waiting for instructions, and then I don't know how to give them instructions. So eventually they get hungry and then just reset and go off and do their own thing again. I would love to know how I, for example, order them to fight fire on this building. Like if I select the building, obviously there's nobody in there. It's burning down. You can see the health here is going down. But I don't really see, just off of a quick examination, how to fight that fire. And then again, here that I've sort of selected these guys and I can kind of move them over here, but really to no avail, right? Like they're all just kind of standing around. They're not doing anything. They're not helping. And then also, so I don't know how really to then get these people to stop standing around. Like I can deselect them. Okay, building's fucked. So that's fun. We're going to have to rebuild it, obviously. We want that smokehouse back up. But yeah, so there's a little interesting thing, How does one fight fires? Well, I think we're going to have to figure that out for future fires, because I'm sure we'll be having a lot more of those. But hey, since we're already in here updating, looks like my villagers are getting back to what they were doing. They're clearing this area here. We're going to have a crop field going in here, which is pretty exciting. So we're clearing that up. We're going to put a couple farmhouses nearby because we've got scaled the field to have about 4 people working it. So 2 nearby houses, that should be fine. You can see that we've started to make some little dirt tracks around the village, and we're going to extend another one up here from the market to sort of connect this gatherer's hut and the nearby well, so that can hopefully service these areas. Oh, hang on. Somebody's getting ate. All right. So now this one here, hang on. Are they responding? They're not. So we're going to tell those villagers to get up here and help. There's little guys running, which, vaguely makes sense. But I want these guys to go over here and attack. Just mob that wolf. Oh God, we lost a guy. But then we stepped in and got him. Now, this is going to be something that obviously we can build some defensive structures to protect us from predators and whatnot. We'll have to do that because if I'm not mistaken, I thought I saw one of our villagers go down. 2 villagers have been attacked. Oh, maybe, let's see. Okay, he's fucked right up, but he's not dead. He's not bleeding out. I can call that a victory. And this guy here just got a little bit roughed up. Okay, so yeah, so we didn't lose anyone. I would have expected that there would probably be a little alert up there saying, hey, somebody died. And there isn't. So hooray for us. Now, as you can see here, this area up here is quite fertile. This area is not. So we actually maybe have lucked into that. When we're building around here, we're going to be building on non-fertile territory, and we're going to have the fertile areas kind of a little bit out here. And we have pushed the map out a little bit as well. But yeah, that's kind of where we're sitting. And actually, we're also getting... Oh, look at this poor bastard. Okay, we need more housing. We know that. I do have my buildings here toggled to automatically upgrade. So as you can see here, we've now filled the herbal requirements for upgrading the building. And we did that by adding another gatherer's hut in range of these herbs. So we've introduced those. We want to get more food types in there. So we just want to increase the diversity of food, which is why we're building crop fields up here. We're going to hopefully service that. Obviously this, we're going to need to upgrade here. We're slightly short. We are adding more housing, so we can see that population rise to 30. And we need to get 40 wood planks in inventory. We're at 36. So we are very, very close to being able to upgrade this town center. And that's going to kick off additional upgrades around the place. Now, as you can see, this is a nonsense little cluster of buildings. We're just taking this really early look at what's in the game, what kind of buildings we're going to be able to do. But, you know, the depth in this is going to absolutely, you know, it's going to be great. I've got good feelings about it. We've got decorations here to pretty up the village, which obviously is something we're going to want to do down the road. You know, we've got tier 2 and tier 3 buildings ahead of us here. You know, some of the stuff that I've been building already, you can see up here. I've got a basket shop. This is allowing me to weave up some baskets to make my foragers a little bit more effective. They can carry more. You know, I'm going to be looking at other stuff as well. For example, with food production, or with resource production, you know, we can go around and collect people's poop and food waste and whatnot to compost, which we're going to do to improve our fertilization of these fields. We have fletchers that can produce bows and arrows, which will increase our ability to both hunt and defend. And we've got cobblers. We can make we've got a tannery. We can make clothes. We can make shoes. Shoes are going to increase the speed of our villagers, reduce their chance of injury on the job site. Steel toes, don't forget them. Tannery, this is going to provide a little bit of protection from animal attacks so they don't get shredded up like this poor little bastard over here. Who are you again? Rocard that got 8. Is slowly healing up. But yeah, I think we're just approaching the hour mark on the video. We've obviously just kind of chipped away at the surface of the game a little bit. There's so much in here already. There's probably so much more to come. If you know, if Grim Dawn is anything to go by, when Crate, you know, which is a tiny team, you know, I think they got about 6 people maybe working there. But when they sink their teeth into something, you know, they really, really flesh it out. They really work to balance it. And you end up with a game that, you know, like I say, Grim Dawn, in my opinion, best in class, you know, unless you're looking for that seasonal content, which of course would be Path of Exile, but best in class ARPG on the market right now. Excellent game, a company that just has my hopes, you know, as high as they're going to get with my shriveled, cynical heart, that this game is going to develop into something that's going to be another one of those, you know, 1,000+ hour games that I come to again and again as it develops. But with all that said, thanks for watching. If you managed to muddle your way through this video, you know, it is in early access, so I'm not going to say go out and buy this game, but I think, you know, I saw positive reviews already stacking up, and I think that's just the goodwill that people have, both for Banished, which, you know, I think we've all wanted a successor to, and for Crate, who's really, really delivered for us ARPG fans in the past. So put this one on your wish list, follow it on Steam, check it out. You know, it's in early access, so that's not going to be to everyone's taste, but there's already a lot here, and I think it's just going to get better as we go down the road. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.